guys, and so I just really quickly wanted to talk about Sophia and school because I get asked this question so very much, which is funny to me because of all the things, like this is the thing that I get asked all the time, is what's going on with Sophie in school? Are we homeschooling her? Does she start kindergarten? Blah, blah, blah. So I'm just going to talk about how, this is how we do it in the US because I don't know how it is elsewhere, but in these United States of America, each state has their own cutoff date for how old your child has to be before they are allowed to start kindergarten in a public school. It varies. I've looked it up, and there are a few states that are as late as December, a couple that are in November or October. Most of them seem to be by September 1st, like some had an August 15th, seemed like a popular date. Basically that your child had to be 5 by or on that date. The state of Texas, it is September 1st. Your child has to turn 5 on or before September 1st. Sophia does not turn 5 until September 8th. So yes, she barely misses the cutoff date. So she technically cannot start kindergarten in the public school system next year. She has to start it the year after. There are ways around this in this state of Texas. Something that a lot of people don't know is in the state of Texas, kindergarten is optional. You do not have to go to kindergarten. I was surprised at this news. I had no idea, but it's true. So to get around the whole cutoff date thing, you are not allowed to skip your child into kindergarten, meaning you cannot, there's no test that they will allow you to take, no hurdle you can jump. There's nothing you can do to say, I want my child, like Sophia, whose birthday is close to the cutoff date, to go ahead and start kindergarten at that time. They don't let you do it. What you can do instead is you can homeschool your child in kindergarten, and then they can take a test that allows them to skip into first grade. So that's my option. I could homeschool Sophie in kindergarten next year or send her to a private school that would allow her to start kindergarten technically early, and then she could take the test to get into, if she passes it, she gets into first grade, voila. I'm not going to do that. And the reason why is because I'm really not in any hurry to move Sophie up through the educational system and out of my house any sooner than she has to be. I'm just not in a hurry. I don't want to, push her along. So I have nothing against skipping grades. It's so funny because younger Courtney would have said, I would totally skip my child ahead. And I don't really think there's really nothing quite wrong with that. This is more of a Courtney now opinion in my certain situation. This is not something I really want to do. I always think of this story that my husband's mother, my husband skipped ahead 2 grades. He started college at 16 years of age, which is crazy, and I think way too young. I think college was I don't think he should have started college that early. But I digress. He ended up doing great, and that's wonderful. However, his mom told me that when she was older, she sat back and she thought about it, and she said, why was I in a hurry for him to get out of the house? She's like, why did I agree to this whole skipping him ahead thing? She told me that, and that really stuck with me. She was like, basically it ended up being that she said it made it seem like she was in a hurry to get him out of the house. She just lost him, she just watched him walk away from her and become more independent earlier. And, she said that in hindsight, she doesn't know why she did that. And that's always stuck with me. I was like, what a good little, life lesson there for you. And so, again, like I said, though, I don't really think there's anything wrong with it at the same time, because Sophia has a friend here whose birthday is just a few days after hers, and they are going to do the whole, I think they have her in, private preschool so that she can get into the private kindergarten early, and they have to pay for this, and that way she can take the test and she can start first grade, technically early, but really, once again, since they're on the cutoff date, you're either going to be when they have birthdays at that time of year, you're either going to be the youngest one in the class or the oldest one in the class. Kyle actually came home one time from his work. Kyle used to work for a school district, and he came home once and he told me that he had been reading all these studies about how a lot of times the children that were not skipped ahead starting at a young age, they thrived because they ended up being more confident in class. And it kind of counteracted the old adage of, well, if your child's really smart, they're bored in school, so you should skip them ahead. And there's merit to that. That's what happened with Kyle. And like I said, he turned out pretty great. But at the same time, I think if your kid goes into kindergarten or first grade and they're pretty dang smart, that's going to set them up that they're going to, you know, feel that they are, you know, confident in their learning abilities and confident in their, you know, school, and hopefully give them a really good attitude to carry on. And so that's kind of our reasoning. Kyle was like, I really don't feel like we should skip her ahead, because I had originally planned on doing the whole private kindergarten thing and skipping her ahead with her weird birthday. And so, you know, I looked into myself and I was like, yeah, you know, and here's the thing. So Sophie's no different than any other kid in terms of age. The average child in the United States starts kindergarten at 5 and ends kindergarten at age 6. And the average child in the United States starts their senior year of high school at 17 and graduates at 18. And Sophie's doing the exact same thing. She'll just turn 6 and she'll turn 18 at the beginning of the school year instead of in the middle or at the end. That's it. So yes, so Sophia is going to start kindergarten the year after next. And that's that. And as far as homeschooling, we homeschool Sophie right now basically, but it's kind of our own method. It's nothing like set up curriculum. We just work with her on all the stuff that I think any parent would work on their child with. You know, reading, writing, and you know, she's into basic math now. And then in Grayson, the same thing, just at the 2-year-old level. So that's happening. But the thing with Sophia is that I think that she would really benefit from a classroom setting. She's really, really good with authority figures. Like, she's very, very mindful to, you know, teachers and adults and things like that. And I think it's because she knows that she knows what we expect of her. Sophia is not going to be the one who acts up in class. Like, that's not allowed. Like, we're like, nope, we nip that in the butt. So she's very good about that. What Sophia is not great about is she gets very bossy with other children. She's very much a leader. She kind of has the older child syndrome where she's like, thinks she's in charge of everything. And that is something I work with her on. I am always telling her, honey, that you need to be open to playing kids' games the way they want to play, and you've got to be blah, blah, blah. But that's a lesson I think she needs to learn out in the wild, so to speak. And if she's homeschooling, then we would do tons of social activities with other kids. But I already do that. It's the same thing, and I don't feel like she's getting the lesson. I want her to be... I really think that Sophie would benefit from a classroom setting, from having to learn how to be a good and positive leader as opposed to a domineering leader. This is that time in her life when she needs to learn that lesson. So Kyle and we want her to do, and all the children should do, their first couple of years in you know, a more of a school setting. However, after that, we would be really open to homeschooling, mainly because we want to travel and we want to do a bunch of things. And we might even attempt to live abroad for a little while if it works out. That's something we're looking into with Kyle's work and his company. And I would homeschool the children then, definitely. So mainly the reason I would consider homeschooling after a couple of years is because these are my children, and I don't like the fact that when they're at school, you're beholden to that school district. Your kids, you cannot pull them, at least in the district I live in. If you want to pull your child out for a vacation, if you want to pull your child out for this or that, you have to jump through hoops. And even though I understand why, I understand that people abuse the system and the schools have to look out for what's best and blah, blah, I completely understand. At the same time, the idea of some thing telling me when and where and how I can handle my child and their time, like, that drives me nuts. It makes me mad. I'm like, no one can tell me that. So that kind of irritates me. So that's definitely, if we ever homeschooled, it would be not because I didn't like the schools themselves, because the schools around here are actually really great. It would be mainly because I would want to do things with my children in our own time. And that also being said, the homeschool groups around here make sure that the kids have tons and tons of awesome social activities, even things like field trips and proms they do. So they wouldn't really miss out on all of that. So I would definitely consider homeschooling, but not yet. First, I want Sophie to actually go into that kind of classroom setting. I don't think it's true for every child. I think specifically her. I think she will benefit from that a little bit, you know? So there we go. So that is why Sophie is not starting school in the fall. It's not because we're being weird, or it's not because we're homeschooling. It's because she can't. She is not of age. So there we go. That is the school situation with Sophie. So Grayson's going to be the opposite. He's going to be the young one in the class. Sophie and Audrey are always going to be the older ones in the class. My birthday's in January, so I was always right smack dab in the middle. Alright, you guys. I'll talk to everybody later. Bye.